Welcome back to theCUBE live coverage here at Dell Technologies World 2026 in Las Vegas. I'm John Furrier, Dave Vellante, Jim Allen, the whole team is here. SiliconANGLE team coverage, getting all the action. Obviously, AI infrastructure is on the main stage. It's center stage, all the action is in the infrastructure, as that's enabling in the agentic, the automated orchestrations, private cloud, and then ultimately AI operations. This is the theme of Dell Tech World, accumulating of many, many years of experience that's kind of coming together. The person who's making it happen in the infrastructure. You got a friend in the infrastructure business, Arthur Lewis, President of the Infrastructure Solutions Group at Dell. Great to see you, thanks for coming on.
Thanks guys for having us.
Can I get a rack for our theCUBE office? You're a lot of friends right now, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Great keynote. You're deploying racks from shipping to delivery in 6 hours. The speed of product updates is unbelievable. Just the velocity is playing out. Take us through what's the biggest change from last year. Walk us through on the business side and on the tech, what's been the biggest change from last year to this year?
I mean, where do I even begin? Look, for me, 5,000 customers, on the Dell AI Factory. As we exited Q3, we said we had over a little bit of 4,000, and we had those 4,000 over about 8 quarters. So like, what happened that we had such a massive jump in AI Factory customers quarter over quarter? And the simple answer is agentic technology, right? We've gone from technology that allows customers to be AI first to technology that allows customers to be AI native. And what I mean by that is customers actually see exactly what Jensen said on stage yesterday, very useful AI. It's understandable to the enterprise. They know exactly what needs to happen. So this notion of remapping all of my processes in addition to the technology transformation, both of these things must go together. So our conversations have exponentially grown since Q3, this inflection point of AI, to sort of where we are today. And then you've seen from, over the last couple of days, the amount of innovation across the individual products to the full stack solutions has been incredibly impressive. I mean, the team is burning the candle at both ends. We like to say the innovation engine is running blazingly hot. Everything we're working on is designed for the agentic enterprise.
And AI first versus AI native, what's the nuance there? What's the difference?
Yeah, so AI first is, we see customers that are not thinking about remapping their processes, and they're simply dropping AI on top of current processes. This is what gets them 10% productivity, 15, 20% productivity.
Paving the cow path.
But the customers that are remapping everything and then using AI, those are the AI native customers. So for example, in my software development world, right, we were on Agile before, and we were using AI for code development, and we were seeing good levels of productivity. We've moved away from Agile to something called spec-driven development. Spec-driven development is an entirely remapped workflow for the software development lifecycle, all built on agentic harness. And now you get into 10x, 20x, 30x productivity gain. This is what it means to be AI native.
So re-architecting is the key for the enterprise. Not just the tech, but how you do things.
Yeah, we like to say the technology is both disruptive and transformative. Disruptive to your business processes, transformative to your tech stack. You can't do one without the other. You can, but it's suboptimal to do one without the other. You got to address both.
Well, certainly the agentic opens up the tokens. The people want more tokens, that's driving a lot of demand, hence the AI factories. Also, the neo cloud growth has helped you guys out on a lot of the big deployments that helping the industry. But now the enterprise is now paying attention because it's almost the same progression you just talked about. Before coding was RAG and good marketing, good benefits, but coding kind of opens the door to the productivity because you can see it, you know it, and the outcome is either shipping for more revenue. That's opening as a gateway for the agents. Take us through what you're seeing there. Is that the same paradigm? Is that the same thing? Is that right?
Well, no, it's incredibly interesting that, this wonderful technology, think about it, ChatGPT launched in November of 22, and it was like magic, right? You could ask the tool a question, it would give you a pretty good answer, right? And then 12 months later, it evolved to long-thinking, autoregressive reasoning models. It could think and give you really, really better answers. 12 months later, it actually moved from something that could think and reason to something that could do stuff, actually execute, with these agents. This is 3 years. I mean, the pace of this innovation is just mind-boggling. And what we've seen with code development in particular is astounding in that they didn't go for a base level workflow, they went for a highly cognitive workflow, which is software development, and said, I can do this and I can do it well. Therefore, imagine everything else I can do.
Well, and one of the themes we're hearing, we obviously go to a lot of conferences, we certainly heard this very strong from Thomas Kurian at Google, that you need new infrastructure in order to handle this type of work. So the challenge, I think, is a lot of enterprises, you got a kind of a barbell, right? Enterprises are leaning in, guys like Lilly that we heard on stage, Honeywell, and you got startups at the other end that are obviously doing this, they're AI native, and there's this big fat middle that's just waiting and ripe for the transformation. How do you see them getting from where they are today to where that North Star is?
Well, I tell you what I love. For my entire career, I've always been a data person because I think, data is the fuel for everything. We always strive to be data-driven. It's always the single source of truth. What I saw over, let's call it the last decade or so, everybody was down this path of a digital transformation, right? And this digital transformation was largely hinged on optimizing my data center and moving things to the cloud. Now, everybody's looking at how do I turn my data center from a cost center to a value center, and my first pillar now is all about my data strategy. We believe that these agentic systems must be connected, data silos collapsed, no more dark data, no more cold data, because like I said on stage today, every single byte of information your organization generates is fuel for AI. So our job is to help customers think through a near-term, long-term, because if you have a massive brownfield operation, it's unrealistic to think you're going to rip and replace it. You need to kind of understand what is the path to go from here to there, and how do you help me get there as quickly as humanly possible?
So the premise we've been working on as it relates to the single version of the truth on theCUBE and theCUBE research is, you've got single versions of truth within departments. They all have their own lake house, or data marts, et cetera. And what we're envisioning, and is starting to happen in certain organizations, is a single version of the truth for the whole organization that everybody can tap into and everybody can share. My two questions, are you seeing that inside of Dell, starting to sort of dissolve those departmental silos, and how is that translating into customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeff has been leading this transformation for us. He was way ahead of the curve in identifying the need to remap processes and envision where artificial intelligence was going. So we've been on this journey for about 3 years, connecting all of our data sources for everything from sales to customer service to product development. And given our direct model, we have millions of conversations with customers every week, right? And so we have an incredibly rich pool of data that we can use to our advantage to deliver features to customers more quickly. And we're doing that on the software development side. And the advancements that I am seeing in how fast we can move has just been astronomical. I mean, we said it's like a buzzword, but small teams are doing things in days and weeks that would take large teams months and years to do.
John Rose was on yesterday on the preview, well, opening day, CUBE. Michael's keynote was that day, so it's the main day. He made a comment about plumbing the data into the factory versus bringing the factory to the data. To your point about, you got to understand, connect everything, but re-architecting the new AI native and make that the gravity point for all the innovation. The data platform that you guys talked about on stage is a lot of these elements. That's going to be good future growth for Dell.
Yep.
Storage, networking, these piece parts that fit in the factory, but also fit in the enterprise. So talk about this data opportunity, because it's not like yesterday's strategy of calling a database. You got OpenClaw flying around, it's on-prem, so it's not like cloud versus on-prem, it's hybrid, and you got private emerging out of this. This is causing the enterprise to be very robust data and engagement data, interactions, work, happening. That's not like it was before. It was all physical, people at their desks, now maybe calling a database, but now you got agents in there. How is that changing the data strategies for companies as they rethink this?
Well, like I said, everything starts with the data, and I think the majority of enterprises are starting to realize that their data strategy doesn't work for AI. And so what are they looking for? And this is what we built within the AI Data Platform, right? Number one is you need a very strong ingest engine, right? So we have the orchestration engine, which is built to ingest data, and then, right, so it can be discovered, it can be cleansed, it can be labeled, and we can be transferred into vector graphs, knowledge graphs, whatever the case might be. And then you got the Dell data engines, which are built to sort of transform and query that data at scale, right? And then you have the underlying storage platforms, right, which are there to move the data at speed. So you got the ingest engine, you got the transformation engine, the query engine, the processing engine. You have everything that you need to build the type of data structure that you need for your company. I don't think it's going to be one big data lakehouse for everything, but it's definitely going to transform.
But you have to be intentional about the strategy with the factories.
Absolutely.
All right, so
and then just if I may, so once you get by the energy bottleneck and the compute bottleneck, you said data essentially becomes the bottleneck. You talked about data prep, you talked about disaggregated inference,
yeah.
But the notion is you've got to have an underlying storage platform that can accommodate that change. And then you also said the private cloud is back. We talked to Travis about that, and he said, well, it never left. I said, yeah, but it's bigger now than it ever was.
Yeah, well, again, if you kind of go back to just at a high level, right? You got to build the foundation with your data platform, right? That has to happen, or else all these results are going to be suboptimal. You got to make sure that you have the security enabled, as you kind of move into the new architecture. You got to make sure that you're building a stack that works across edge, core, and cloud. It's got to be a full stack solution, and then it's got to be something that's built for agentic. And what I mean by that is, when Jeff said this, right? Like tokens are going to be a line item in your P&L, right? And it's not going to be a small line item. So customers are thinking about token economics, and what does that come down to? It comes down to two things. Number one is, am I generating the tokens efficiently, and am I using the tokens efficiently? You got to ask both of those questions, right? And we help customers generate the tokens efficiently more than any competitor in the industry, and we give them the observability to judge, are they using the tokens effectively, right? And that's what we're trying to do.
I mean, the enterprise AI race is an infrastructure race at this point. It's clear to us and covering this. I have to ask you about the utilization piece because, these are big investments. We'll get to the rack scale. I want to get to the rack scale after this, but one big focus in the rack is making sure the GPUs and the processors are utilized.
That's right.
And there's weird numbers being quoted about utilization rates, but that is a design piece. How is your team thinking about this? Obviously, HBM, you got non-volatile memory, you got everything's factoring into this. KV cache is a critical piece of the GPU. These things got to be working. They got to be humming like an engine.
Yeah.
How do you fix that or change that architecture?
With an AI factory, you're at 100% GPU utilization, right? That's the benefit of buying a full stack solution, right? It's the compute, it's the network, it's the storage, it's all of these things working together because we want to make sure that everything is optimized so you maximize the power of the GPU, right? If your network is stalled, if your data is poor, if your storage is slow, all of that will affect the output and the utilization of the GPU.
So you're saying 100%
we're at 100%,
Dell.
That's right.
All right, so let's, well, we'll look into that, but you say we'll believe you. But this brings up the rack scale, because I love that term. You said before we came on camera, the rack is the product.
Yeah.
That really works for me, because I can visualize that. Take us through the importance of why the rack is the product, and why that changes the utilization, because that's not, I won't say normal, but we've seen people build racks, but you're shipping the rack from Dell.
Yes.
Not like here's a rack and load it up and wire it up.
Yeah, but because we've learned a lot about how AI workloads operate, right? And so we are able to optimize, like I said, the compute, the network, the storage, the data management, the software, the ecosystem, and optimize it in one thing. If you want to go buy a PC, you're not going to go buy a Windows license, go to MyTech and buy a keyboard, go to someone else and kind of build your own PC, right? That's now what's kind of happening in rack scales. Customers saying like, I don't want to be the purchaser of components, I need a rack that does this. You're expert at doing that, give me that. And we give them that.
Yeah, that's also another story that's coming out of this Dell Tech World, is the partner opportunity. How has that changed on the partner side? Because now you have SKUs, basically. I mean, what, you guys have like a certification? Is that, how are you thinking about the customer install, turn it on, boot up, kind of like a PC. It's a great example.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's still a very large opportunity for the partner community here, and what I'm seeing is that, with artificial intelligence, partners are creating tons of new offers and services that surround everything around AI, right? We provide all of the infrastructure that the customer needs, and then the partner is in there to provide other types of services, but whether they could be data services, day two services, there's an incredible opportunity to fill out that offering.
So the portfolio is like exploding here. I just want to go through it, because I don't know if I caught it all, but you started with the Dell AI platform, you talked earlier about data prep and the orchestration. The data loop is an interesting piece. You mentioned knowledge graph. I think data loop has a knowledge graph that came from that. You talked about Lightning, the new file system that's now shipping, correct? Is that, or is
I mean, look, if you want to talk about product launches, I'll go through them all for you.
So, please do. I mean, object scale, exascale, the 4-in-1.
Give us a rundown.
I mean, give us the rundown.
I don't know how much time we have. Okay, so
go fast.
I'll start with the sort of the basics, right? Number one, we announced the broadest refresh of PowerEdge with the 18th generation portfolio, including new ultra performance systems that we don't have today that support CPUs from NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel. High performance systems designed for high core count density and high memory bandwidth, specifically for AI workloads. And as I said, continue all under one management platform, and all of them post-quantum cryptography compliant day one, right? Moving up the stack, you have PowerStore Elite, and what we've done there with the 3rd generation refresh of PowerStore Elite, full refresh of hardware and software, faster, more powerful CPUs, faster memory, significant enhancements to the software stack. I won't go through all the metrics, but it's an incredibly performant platform. Move up into PowerProtect 1, we've brought PowerProtect Data Manager and PowerProtect Data Domain together, right, as more of, hey, this is cyber resilience in the era of AI. Significant advancements to PowerScale and ObjectScale that we talked about. We introduced Exascale, which by the way is not just for unstructured, because I don't know if you caught it, but I include PowerFlex in there.
Yep.
So customers can buy rack scale and a TLA, and they can put whatever storage they want in there. It can be file, it can be block, it can be object, or it can be disaggregated inference. We also announced a new tier of memory with Lightning. It's not only the fastest parallel file system in the world, it also provides the context memory extensions and storage access needed for disaggregated inference. So the fact that we're using Lightning for the disaggregated inference increases significantly the context window when you split the prefill and decode space. So you have an even more efficient token generation engine.
Awesome, yeah, okay, and the storage stack is completely changing. I mean, we saw that at GTC this year, and so congratulations. The other nuance here is that you get the 4-in-1. You're not so much talking about this box and this box and this box. It's okay, customers, you can make the choice, you can put in whatever's the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, so a customer who's software defined says, hey, I'm worried about supply of hardware over the next several years. They can do a long-term agreement for us for the hardware. They don't have to commit to the software. They just say, I need X amount of exabytes spent, and then they can use file, they can use block, they can use object, they can use disaggregated, they can use whatever.
But you could have done that in an all-in-one kind of Swiss Army knife system. You made the choice, I'm sure, several years ago, not to do that. Why?
Customers don't want that. This is a much more effective way for us to deploy software within a customer environment.
Is there a trade-off? I mean, you got obviously there's an engineering resource that you have to put on each, but you decided that was the right path.
Yeah, I mean, look, the notion of an AI factory, I don't want it to seem like there's not customizations that are required, right? And in a lot of cases, especially in the neoclouds and with sovereigns, there's a lot of customization that's required. The architecture of Exascale allows us to be incredibly flexible to meet a wide variety of customer requirements.
But 2 years ago, I would say that every AI factory was a snowflake. That's not the case anymore, right? I mean...
Yeah, they're not exactly cookie cutter either.
Right.
And for example, in the neoclouds, people talk about reference architecture. Our CTO pods do on average of 50 to 100 different designs before the customer lands on a specific design, to give you an idea of the complexity when you're configuring a rack. Right? It's not just the GPUs and the network, but it's the power management, it's the cooling technology, where the bus bar goes, how the power whips connect.
Kind of built to order, really. Kind of
we have
to weave that in.
Where'd that idea come from?
Yeah, it's great. No, I mean, I think the supply chain, you guys have done an amazing job. I guess my final question is, what's on your docket now? Because with this change, I mean, 3 months from now, it's almost, could you have another Dell Tech World? You could have more stuff coming. what do you got going on? What are you focused on? Put a plug in for what's going on in the team.
Stay tuned for Dell Tech Summit. Look, I think the topical areas are where we're focused, right? So the data foundation, we got to go drive that hard. The Dell private cloud, right? Modernizing infrastructure to free up resources, making more advancements with the automation platform and native edge and all of the announcements that we have there. Continue to go drive technology within the Dell AI Factory, especially around Sonic and the network. I'm a huge proponent of Sonic. I think it was the perfect operating system for AI, and you're going to see us push on that really, really hard.
Great, love the networking, it's a real important area. Arthur, thanks for coming on theCUBE. Great to see you, congratulations on a great year. Looking forward to catching up at Dell Tech Summit. Arthur Lewis, President of Infrastructure Solutions Group at Dell Technologies, the key driver for the AI Factory and all the action happening in the portfolio as it comes together around this new AI native infrastructure. The enterprise AI game is an infrastructure game at this point. It'll enable a lot of agentic and a lot of other great things. Stay tuned for more CUBE. We're doing our part to bring all the action to you. Thanks for watching.